Cheese always moves his lips when the numbers are going down. He's like, Cheese is the goofball. So
Yeah.
so yeah, pretty excited about this one. I think it's going to be pretty good. So yeah, I have Webb Kosich with me today. He is a rising sophomore at the College of William and Mary. Plays men's soccer there. We're going to get into his story, which is a little different than your average run of the mill college soccer player story. Unfortunately, it's a little different. So I'm sure that we're going to get into some things that you know kind of change your outlook a little bit, maybe. Anyway, so yeah, again, Webb Kosich, you're from where? Give us your
So
bio.
yeah, so I'm from Hollywood, Maryland, which is down south, Southern Maryland, hour south of DC, very small area.
That's a
There's
lot
actually
different than Hollywood, Los Angeles, right?
it is. It's
Yeah.
yeah, about the opposite. And there's actually three of us on the team that are neighbors with each other, which is crazy, from a small little area. So um, yeah, that's I've lived there pretty much all my life. So.
Yep. Cool. So like, grow up there, brothers, sisters.
Yeah, so growing up, my dad was active duty military. So originally, I was born in Virginia Beach, Virginia. We moved around a bit when I was younger.
Mhm.
My brother and sister, I have a younger sister and a younger brother, and they were both born in Little Rock, Arkansas. And then from there, we moved to Maryland and went kindergarten all the way up, graduated high school, and then now I'm here still. Originally living in Maryland. So
Nice. I think I noticed in your bio that your dad's a Hokie, so he's a good person. Yeah.
he is, he
Yeah.
is,
So
mom
my
and dad.
oh, so yeah, Augie's mom and dad are too. So
Okay,
yeah.
nice.
Well, cool. So when did you start playing soccer?
Yeah, as long as I can remember, I think I was one of those guys when I was a little kid. My parents signed me up for every sport.
Yeah.
Um, I think my parents always said I played soccer since I was three. So, um, as young as I can remember, I've always been playing soccer and
Yeah.
always had an athletic upbringing, I guess. So.
When did you start getting serious about it?
I would say, I was always I played travel, obviously when I was younger, and I was always pretty serious about it. It was like my main sport. I kind of dropped every other sport. I got really serious um, probably in middle school. I would say is when I got really serious with soccer and
Hmm.
had aspirations and goals to do stuff with it.
Huh.
So yeah, that's younger age is when I would say.
Yeah. And so did you kind of have that you had to drive in towards DC, more urban Maryland to find a club to, kind of raise your game a little bit?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. So, I always played on like my local travel club team, and then I ended up doing a year. I played for the DC United DA Academy.
Hmm.
I think when I was in seventh grade. So yeah, that was like a huge step up for me. And it was kind of a shock to me, going from just like a small town, travel team to professional, like you know uh, more serious, soccer.
Yeah. I mean, I think the word is probably right. Like it was more of a professional environment.
Yeah, it definitely was.
Yeah.
And from there, it just wasn't really like a fit for me. So I only did 1 year. I ended up leaving. And then I ended up at Maryland United in Annapolis, which was still about an hour and a half drive. But I was there for 4 years, all of high school, and that's where I was, and I loved it there. So
Yeah. So you didn't have to choose between playing club and high school soccer. Were you able to play high school soccer?
I was,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that was a big thing for me for sure. Um, I definitely wanted to play in high school, and actually, that's the reason that I went to high school. The high school that I did, I went to a private high school because I got looks from a coach there, and he wanted to bring me in. So
Cool. So yeah, I mean, it's nice to have that experience. We've talked about that a little bit on here. Like, the experience of playing in front of a crowd and people who aren't just your mom, dad, brother and sister, whoever, aunts and uncles, or, playing in front of girls that, that you're trying to impress, and
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing. So
Definitely.
definitely a different environment that, kind of, how did that prepare you for, playing in front of a crowd in college?
Yeah. Obviously it's different in college. It's a bigger scale. But using high school as kind of a step stool, and a place where you can get better and have build confidence, and score a lot of goals, win a lot of games, and just have fun. Really, it's
Yeah.
what I used high school for. And my coach there. He played Division 1 at Providence, so um, he had a big influence on my recruiting process going through high school as well. So
Yeah. So that's awesome. Like you had someone who'd actually been through it. Not everybody gets that mentorship kind of deal.
mhm.
So you're really lucky. Talk about kind of that relationship and like, so, all right. So when did you decide I'm going to be a college soccer player? When did that thought enter your head?
um, I think from an early age, that was always the ultimate goal. Um, that was that's kind of a cliche answer to just say I want to play in college because everybody does.
Yeah.
But I would say, in middle school, going into high school is when I, kind of seriously was like, okay, I want to play in college and I gotta, do the steps to get there. So
So like so you were lucky because you had someone who would be honest with you and about, what level your coach thought that you could, pan out to play in.
yeah,
So when did you like decide, know that you weren't going to go play at, UNC or something, like, I don't know. A Power Five type school. Like when did it start to come into focus for you? Like, these are the schools I need to target, and what this is the level that I'm probably gonna, my trajectory is gonna take me on.
yeah. Um, I would say, um, freshman, sophomore years when that really started going through my mind,
Mm-hmm.
of high school. I think, um, obviously you want to have as big as goals as you can, but you do have to be honest with yourself and say, okay, maybe a Power 5 school isn't for me. Maybe
Right.
something a little bit smaller, whether it's D3, D1, D2. Doesn't matter. You just gotta be realistic with yourself, and take advice from the people around you. Which obviously having a high school coach that played at a high level helped. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So obviously, you go through a couple years of high school and then you start getting some looks, right? So, like, when did that how did it happen? Where did it happen? When was your first, letter or email? Or I guess nobody writes letters anymore. My bad.
yeah.
Um, so, when did you start really communicating with college coaches, and where did you like fall into your sweet spot? And start
Sure.
working with schools.
I would say, obviously my recruiting process was a little um, different because of COVID. So my everything kind of got delayed a bit. And obviously there's that rule where D1 coaches can't contact you until a certain point in time. But I always had aspirations to play D1, so I was patient with it, and I would say sophomore junior years when I started really talking to coaches and deciding where I wanted to go. Um, and started reaching out to coaches that and schools that I was interested in, and yeah, just think yeah, I would say sophomore year going into junior year is when that primarily
Right.
started for me.
So, like, think back to that point and like, what were the feelings that you had in that time frame where, you know, you're you're really exploring what your future is going to be. You've got kids around you that are talking to college coaches. Maybe some of them are committing at that point. Who knows? So like, where was your head, and what were the emotions around that whole process?
You kind of cut out a little bit there. Can you say that again? Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So, like, what were the emotions around that process? When did you were you feeling pressure? Were you feeling disappointment? Were you feeling like it's just going to work out? Like you were patient with it, or were you getting antsy about it? That kind of thing.
yeah. I would say the whole array there. I would and I think that's going through the ups and downs of the recruiting process is normal. And I definitely did. Um, and you said the emotions, yeah, like
Yeah,
how I
yeah,
felt about it.
yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, having friends, having teammates that were committing before me
yeah,
puts a little bit of pressure on you, definitely. And have my parents were really supportive throughout it, but obviously they're like reach out to this coach, reach out to this coach.
yeah,
So there's definitely a lot of pressure to make that commitment, right? But I think it's important just to keep patience and really decide what you want. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters most is what you want. It's
right,
your life, your 4 years of college, where you're gonna play soccer. So I think just don't lose sight of the fact that it's your journey, um your life. So I think it's okay to feel the pressure and be antsy about it and want to make a commitment even if it's a school that you're not 100% in on. But I think just be patient with it and everything will work out in the end. It always does. So
right, yeah. Um, so like when you started doing visits and having real in-depth conversations with coaches, like what stands out to you um, as things that like drew you to a place, and then things that maybe turned you off from places?
sure. um yeah, I mean there's a number of things I would say. Primarily, feeling valued by that coach,
Hmm.
feeling as if he wants you there, if there's a lot of communication between each other. Um, like one big thing for me is if, like if a coach, I remember I had a certain call with the coach one time. This was earlier in the process, probably my late sophomore year, early junior year. And the coach told me to call him at this time and he didn't answer. And when I called him, and I just showed, I don't want to say laziness, but like a lack of commitment to me, and that's a turnoff for me. So I think um, just if the coach is invested in you, I think that's a big thing, and just feeling valued by that coach, feeling like he wants you at his school,
Hmm.
um, and yeah, I think that was a big part of my commitment as well. So feeling
Yeah,
valued.
yeah. What about like, did you do your official visit at William and Mary? Did you stay with Augie?
I did not. So when
Okay.
I did it, it was still like COVID rules. So I had to stay at like a hotel or something.
That's
So yeah,
not
yeah.
cool. Um, so yeah, so like, what was your experience in doing visits? I know that you're being recruited by frequent guests of this show, Justin Chesum and Chris Norris. So like,
Hmm.
talk about the difference between a D3 visit and a D1 visit, and you know, what were the pluses and minuses for you on those visits?
Yeah, I would say for me they were there wasn't much of a huge difference between D3 and D1 visits. But I think the main thing when you go on those visits to those certain schools is just feeling like the guys on the team are obviously a big part of it. Whether you feel like a part of the team while you're there or just like kind of an outsider.
Hmm.
Obviously the facilities at like a D1 school might be nicer just because of, budget, stuff like that. Um, so yeah, I just think um, for me, obviously I did a couple of visits with like COVID rules and stuff. I didn't do too many visits, but I just think so. Like there were restrictions on what I could do. Like staying overnight, I couldn't do. I didn't do very many overnight visits just because of COVID and those rules. But what I got from those visits and those experiences was just like how I, how what, do I fit into this team? do I like the guys on the team? Do I like the campus? Do I like the location where I'm going to school, or where I could potentially be going to school? So I think those are all important things to take into, to have in the back of your head while you're on these visits. So
Right. Right. Um, so obviously you go through this process and you get an offer. You get more than one offer, probably. I'm guessing. And so, like, what was the sequence? And did you have to wait on your where you finally ended up, or was that one of the first ones? And how like walk through that process of making your decision.
yeah, so I got a couple of D3 and other D1 offers like early on in my process. And when I visited at William and Mary, I knew this is where I wanted to go. So this was always after my visit, top of my list. So I was patient, and I waited. Coach Norris came and saw me play a lot of times before he finally offered me. And he watched a lot of film. I know he did. So, um, but yeah, I just think having patience and um, just if it's your top school, just be patient. It'll come. I think don't
So
don't just jump at an offer just because you have it.
right. So yeah, like what made you decide that William and Mary was your place? Like, you felt like you bonded get well with the guys and all that, but like really dive into, what made you feel so at home at William and Mary.
Sure. Yeah, I think one thing that sticks out in my mind to me is I have family from down here that live in Virginia Beach, live in Richmond,
Mm-hmm.
nearby. So that was a big thing, having family nearby. I think on my visit specifically, the facilities I really liked. Obviously the guys I fit in well with, better
Mm-hmm.
than any other school I would say. Um, Coach Norris and Coach B were big parts of my visit. Came and checked up on me. Were constantly, texting me, asking me how I'm doing, stuff like that. Um, I went to a class or two, and I thought those were interesting. So I think just everything just kind of was perfect for me. And I think, um, going into the visit, I wasn't expecting William and Mary to be my number one. I just think, it's kind of hard to describe. It just kind of everything just fell into place perfectly, and just everything about it I liked. It fit what I wanted, fit what I needed. So
Yeah. Um, and so like you gave like a thorough evaluation of like it had the majors that you wanted or the major that you wanted, or
yeah,
did you know that at that point? Like
yeah,
when you
yeah, I
decided?
did, and that was that's something I forgot to mention. Yeah, so I'm on the business track, and a bunch of the guys on the team are on the business track. Obviously, Augie is.
Yeah.
So just hearing their experiences and their words of encouragement about it, I think that drew me to wanting to marry even more. So
Cool. All right. So you make a decision. How great was that feeling when you got the offer and you were like, yes, that's where I'm going.
yeah, it was amazing. I remember Norris offered me on a Zoom call, like late at night one night, and I committed the next morning at like 8 a.m. It was
Yeah.
just, yeah, I knew it's new. I knew it's where I wanted to go, and I think at that point it was fall of my senior year, and I was just like, yeah, this is it. This is where I want to go. So I jumped at it.
Cool. Um, so yeah, it's a pretty awesome feeling, huh? I remember
Yeah,
I
yeah,
remember Augie's meeting. We, since we were in town, we went and met with Norris, and like we walk out of William Kaplan, and it's like, what are you waiting for? Like, why aren't you saying yes? And he's like,
yeah.
right, So he like called him back from the parking lot, like 5 minutes later. So
Nice.
yeah, it's pretty cool, pretty good moment in life for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so you commit, and then you got like 8-9 months before you report on that first day. Like, how did you? Uh, what'd you do to prepare yourself for being a Division I soccer player? I mean, what did you focus on? What did you think was important to do at that point? Obviously, you have your coach, your high school coach, who can guide you a little bit in that. So
Sure.
Yeah, it's your
Yeah,
process.
I think just like not letting off the gas, just because you committed, it's important to stay focused and um, not slack off for a whole year before you go to Division 1 and play Division 1 soccer. I think, um, for me, I just kept doing what I was doing. I trained hard. Got through high school season, had a good club season,
Hmm.
um, and just prepared as best I could during the summer, coming into William and Mary in the fall to play. And I just think it's important to just stay focused and don't lose sight of your end goal. So.
Yeah. So, like, did you do extra things? Like, what do you think differentiated you, other than like ability? Like,
Hmm.
you obviously have athletic ability. You're at a level for a reason. So,
Hmm.
like, what do you think differentiated you from like outside of your talent standpoint? Like, did you do extra stuff? Did were you an after practice kind of guy? Were you, I'm going to do stuff when I don't have team training, that kind of thing?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that was a big part of my process was doing extra work, doing work outside practice.
Mhm.
I think that comes from my military dad's upbringing of just working hard constantly, doing more work than other people, and yeah, yeah, you bring up a good point. It's just doing extra work that other people aren't doing is what's going to make you better than other people, and
Right.
um, I think that's a big part of getting to the level that you want to be at is just putting in extra work, whether it's a lift, whether it's going to the field when you're tired, doing an extra sprint when everybody else is done. Just
Mhm.
little things like that add up.
Yep.
And I think especially going into your senior year when you've committed and you're ready to play D1, you just gotta keep it going. So.
Right. And could you see a difference like in you and then like your teammates who weren't going Division 1? Was there a difference in work ethic
There was,
and
yeah, there
commitment?
definitely was. I think maybe some of the guys who were, you know, like on my club team that were maybe going D3 or weren't committed yet or
Mhm.
whatever it may be, playing at a lower level than Division 1. I think maybe they I don't want to say slacked off a little bit, but I would definitely say that myself and other guys that were playing committed to play D1 were definitely working harder and um, putting in more work. I would say definitely.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to like just as an aside say that like that's a reflection of your passion for the game and to get
Hmm.
better. And not everybody has to have that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not wrong if you don't want to like work extra. It just means that you can't have the same expectations, right? So,
Definitely, definitely.
um, I don't want to like paint the wrong picture that if you're
Yeah,
you're a loser if you're not working extra.
yeah,
Um, so you get to college, man, and it's probably a huge change for you.
yeah.
Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I mean, it's the game is a little different, and like your responsibilities are a little different. So talk about like walking into training camp for the first time, and everything that happened that you can remember to kind of just share your experience with sophomores, juniors, seniors in high school right now.
Sure. Yeah, I think going into preseason, I think there's definitely a lot of pressure to perform. Going into a new team, having new coaches, it's definitely like a culture shock, I would say. And it's easy. It's easy to like make mistakes and have low confidence when those things are happening. But yeah, I think just showing up, having practice 2 times a day during preseason is another tough thing. It's something that we're going through right now. I think guys are injured, guys are sore all the time. It's a lot of hard work. And it's a
Yep.
big commitment for sure. A lot of meetings and a lot of watching film. All this stuff. I think it becomes a huge part of your life, soccer. And maybe it wasn't in high school, right? Maybe you were spending just 2 3 hours a day training, and not much outside of that, focusing on soccer. Maybe you had other focuses, hanging out with friends, doing other stuff. But when you get to preseason for, at least here at William and Mary, it becomes a big part of your day for sure, and it's what you focus on throughout the day, every day. So I think it's definitely a huge shock. And now that I'm a sophomore and this is my second time going through it, I think it gets better.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, you just gotta lock in and be ready to go at all times. So
Yeah. So go back for a sec. You talked about like getting, having your confidence lowered.
sure.
So like you show up and you're not you're used to being one of the better players, in a
Yeah,
training session or on the field, and you know you're a good player, Webb. I've watched you. You're good, but there's also really good players on your team there. So
hmm
like, what's it like to make that adjustment, and what's it like to have your confidence knocked down a little bit? And what are you working on in between your years to experience personal growth there, where you're having to pick yourself back up?
yeah, yeah. It's tough. I think as you mentioned, being a big fish in a small pond, going to you know being a big fish with other big fish. It's tough having other players that are equally as good as you, if not better. It's
Mhm.
definitely tough, and it can lower your confidence. And you're definitely having other players that are just as good as you means you're going to make mistakes in practice. And yeah, it just you know if it compounds and lowers your confidence, and um, as you talked about, you gotta channel it into something that helps you grow.
Mhm.
It helps you, use the mistakes to become better. And adjust to the playing style, adjust to your new teammates and how they play. And maybe that'll help you improve your game as well. I think yeah, and for me, um, coming into college, having players that were like I was primarily a guy that subbed in last year and not a starter. Going from starting every game, every high school game, every club game, to coming into William and Mary and being a guy who subbed in and didn't get as many minutes as maybe I'd like to. It was tough and it does lower confidence. But with that being said, you have to use that to become better and um, just have that goal, have that belief, have that goal in the back of your head that I will be a starter, I will score a goal in this game, I will, whatever it is. Just um, yeah, as you said, the growth is a big part of it. You can't let the mistakes compound, you can't let the confidence get lower and lower. You have to use it and channel it to become a better player and mentally stronger as well. So
Yeah. Um, and I mean, you felt supported by your teammates, and you had resources. Like if you did get too low, you felt like you had resources to help you out, right? Uh,
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, teammates, guys are like family. You can talk to them about anything. I think that's important too. I think sometimes, I've done this as well. I think sometimes guys, if they're going through something, if they want to talk about something, they keep it internal.
Mhm.
And I don't think that's good. I think you have to, express yourself, express how you're feeling, whether it's to your coaches, to your teammates, to your
Mhm.
parents, even your family. I think it's important just to get stuff off your chest and get feedback on it, and maybe that'll help solve the problem. So
Right. Right. Yeah, that's good. That's good perspective there. So you go through the season, like describe like the challenges of 2 matches a week, and you're playing, you're not playing, you've got disappointment, you've got like the feeling of success and progress, and
hmm
like just talk about that roller coaster, like emotionally, mentally, but physically as well. I mean, you're still
yeah,
training every day too.
hmm yeah. No, it's a lot. It's a lot on all three, as you said, mentally, physically, emotionally. It's tough. I think early on in the season, I scored a goal against Coastal Carolina in the first game, and then I scored a goal against Longwood in the second or third game. So I started off hot, and I started a couple games after that, and then I was, didn't perform as well as I'd like to, and then I was back to the bench. So I went through all phases of being a guy that didn't play, being a guy that subbed on, and then being a starter. So I think it's tough. I would say the physical side, going through a season is definitely um, probably the toughest. Just training every day, 2 games a week is really taxing on the body, um, and that also when you're physically hurt or injured or physically sore, that can impair you mentally as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like right now, for example, I am not playing in any games. I'm redshirting this season.
We'll
So
get into that in a minute.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But for example, oh, I do want to give an example. My roommate last year, Bryce, he had knee issues and he was out for the entire season. And I think that, and we had deep talks about it. I think it affected him mentally for sure. Um, but that's a whole other thing, being injured. But yeah,
It
it's
isn't though, right? I mean, because you're there because you have your love of the game, basically, right? And
yeah,
you have it taken away from you, and
yeah,
like that's why it's so important to make sure that you like the place where you're going, not
sure,
just the bubble of soccer, right?
definitely, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, so so yeah, you get through the season, ups and downs. You
hmm,
survive the season, right? And
yeah,
talk about like just the balancing act of school and um, soccer and trying to be having fun as a college student as well.
yeah. Um, I think that's the big dilemma going in is how am I going to balance all of that? I think it's definitely tough. It's a challenge, but it's nothing. As long as you're dedicated and um, you know, like there's certain days that you wake up and you don't want to go to class, for sure, but you just gotta push through and just get it done. At the end of the day, you just gotta get whatever it is done and move on to the next thing. And it's definitely stressful. Having class, having maybe if there's a test, like the day before a game or on a game day, maybe you have a test the morning of a game day and then a game later that day. It's all mentally super super taxing, and I think it is hard to balance. But as hard as it is to do it, I think it's doable. And yeah, I just think you just gotta keep going.
Yeah. So do you feel like you had those habits, those like self-discipline habits going into college, or do you think that, or maybe they just got kind of honed once you got into college and you probably had some role models and that sort of thing?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think discipline's a huge huge part of college. I think specific role models that I had were the seniors last year. So Alexander, Diva, those type of guys. Alfredo, who's still on the team now. Those guys didn't miss a beat with anything. They were at class, taking tests, and then at practice the next day, ready to go. Or at practice later that day, ready to go.
Yep.
And just giving their best every single time they do something. I think I can take that. Younger guys can take that and learn from it. And I definitely did last year, and I still am now. I'm only a sophomore, so I think, um, yeah, I think all that's definitely a big piece of college, and having fun in college as well. You can't. We definitely had our fair share of fun last year, but you can't overdo it. I think it's you got to keep your priorities straight.
Yeah. Yeah. So you get through the season, and I'm not 100% clear on the timeline here. So do you get like all the way through the semester, you take your finals, and then things kind of went a little off the rail, off track there?
Yeah, yeah. So we finished the season. Season went well. Took all my finals, did all that, said bye to my friends. I went home for Christmas break.
Hmm.
Had Christmas with my family. It was good, and then early January is when everything started to go the other direction. So
Yeah. So what went down? Let's get what you want to share about all that.
sure, yeah, nah, man, it's crazy thinking back on it now. It's been 6 7 months since then. So I think this is early January. I started getting like different signs that something was wrong. I went to the doctor and they tested my blood and I had no platelets, I had no white blood cells, and I had no red blood cells in my body, like my bone marrow. wasn't producing anything. So it was yeah, so that was the start, and I ended up getting helicoptered up to Hopkins. It took them a very very long time to figure out what was going on, but yeah, that was the beginning. I was just having signs of something was up, and yeah, the blood tests were not good. So
Yeah. So, I mean, what was your reaction to that, man? I mean,
yeah, so to
brief.
that, I wasn't because it took a couple weeks for them to figure out what was going on.
So you like from the hospital that you were at in your town,
Mhm.
they're like, all right, this isn't good. You
Yeah.
know, we need like you can't even we don't even want you in a car. Like
Hmm.
they decided that you needed like full time medical care just to get up to Hopkins, which is what
Yeah.
I mean, hour and a half maybe from
Yeah. It's
yeah
about 2 hours from where I
yeah.
live.
I'm just trying to paint like how serious like they were taking it really seriously at
Yeah,
that.
it was because this is something that it's not common at all.
Huh.
Your body should be producing these things if
Right
it's working properly, right? So I think how I felt about it, for those couple weeks where they weren't sure, I was a little bit nervous, but I felt good. I was, it's like, all right, like I'm young, like I'm a healthy guy, like I should be all right,
right
um, and then when they finally figured out that I had aplastic anemia, and they came in and told me, it was a shock. I never in a million years thought that something like that could happen to me.
right.
Um, so I think, yeah, that's the diagnosis is just the beginning. There's so much that we gotta get into.
Yeah. So like you get that, and then as a parent, I would probably be like just a mess for a minute, like, and then it would
Mhm.
be kind of like, all right, what do we got to do to get this right? And
Yeah,
I'm sure your parents were and your family were pretty beside themselves for a little bit there.
yeah. No, I
Yeah.
remember. Um, my dad was with me. My dad was the only family member with me when the doctors came in and told me what I had, and you know I'd never seen him cry before, and we both just broke down right there, and it was
Yeah.
uh it was a tough moment, but I ended up um I actually was very lucky. The doctors, what I had wasn't they were looking for cancer. That was primarily what was in their head because they didn't know what was going on. They're just like, could be leukemia. That's what, and they were mentally preparing me for it to be leukemia. So I was very very lucky that it didn't
Mm.
end up being that. So I think as hard as it was to get that, I think I was also happy and blessed that I didn't have cancer. Like
Right.
so.
So yeah, what comes next, man?
Yeah. So next, um, it's a long, long process to get the treatment started and everything. So I went home and I just quarantined for like a month or two. Um, I got sick a couple times pretty bad because I had no immune system. Um, and yeah, that month and a half or so that I was home was it was just good to be home and be surrounded by my family. My grandparents, everybody came up and visited multiple times. So just mentally preparing me for what was ahead was big, and I think that little break in between my diagnosis and my treatment starting was big, and keeping me going. So um, yeah,
Yeah, one of my favorite pictures was when all the guys came up to see you. That was
yeah,
pretty.
yeah. The guys, right before I, was admitted to the hospital, the guys came up and saw me, and that was awesome. So
Yeah,
it meant a lot.
yeah. So yeah, so you why did you have to quarantine? Like were they trying to get you stronger to handle the treatment, or how does that? What's the thinking there?
Yeah. So, the main reason was just I had no immune system. I had no white blood cells, which fights off infections. So, I actually the main reason I was quarantining in my house was just so I could not get sick, basically. Because if I got sick, that would delay everything even more. Um, so yeah, once that gets done, I get admitted, and it's a super long process, but they basically tell me, I'm going to be going through chemotherapy, I'm going to be going through radiation, and then I ultimately had to get a bone marrow transplant, which is what saved my life. So,
Yeah.
my entire family, friends, people I haven't talked to in forever were texting me like, "Hey, how can I be your donor? Um, how can I get my blood tested to check if I'm your donor?" And luckily, we found out before that my sister was a perfect match for me, which is amazing. Um, and
Yeah.
probably one of the reasons that I that I'm back at school and back here playing soccer, doing what I love to do. So I think yeah, yeah. So my yeah. So yeah, my sister is my donor. We found that out before, and then once I
Wait,
get admitted,
hold on. I gotta bring in a moment of levity here. So, is your sister older or younger?
so my sister is a year younger than me. Um,
Did you
she
pick on her, man? When
What's
she
up?
was, did you pick on her at all?
No, no, we've always had a good relationship.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
was
she
never.
could have held out a little while, and made you sweat it a little.
No, no, it was. Yeah, no, she was great. As soon as she found out, she was,
Yeah.
when can I do this?
All
So
right. So, a couple questions.
yeah.
So you start treatment, right? And you're doing chemo and radiation. So,
Mhm.
like, how bad was that? My dad had cancer. I watched that. He wasn't a 20-year-old kid though. So,
Mhm.
uh, tell me about that and like what you were thinking through all that and you know,
Yeah, it's mentally preparing for it. I felt good going into it. I had a month and a half to prep for it, and I was ready for it. And I knew I had to go through it to get better. So, yeah, going through it, I had about a week or two of chemotherapy every day. And I think early on it wasn't too bad. I was okay. I still felt okay. But as the days got on, it just my appetite got less and less, and I had no energy. I was losing weight. Um, and then yeah, like there were days I literally would just lay in my hospital bed all day. I just had no energy, and yeah. So once I got the chemotherapy done, at the end of that, I had a single day of radiation, and that was the hardest of everything. I think that was the hardest part, and I'm lucky. I only had one day. There's people out there who have, you know, multiple days of radiation, multiple treatments of more chemotherapy, like way more chemotherapy and radiation than I got. So I just tried to keep it in perspective. Like I'm lucky. I'm lucky to be here and going through what I'm going through. And once I got all that done, it was hard. I felt terrible, but I knew it was done, and I could
yeah.
get that off
So,
me. So
how long was it like? How long was that treatment, chemo and radiation?
it was about 2 weeks.
Okay.
So that was the first 2 weeks I was in the hospital. Um, and so basically, like the point of all that was just to clear out my immune system.
Right.
And then after the last day of radiation, there was a space where I rested, and then my sister came up and they harvested her bone marrow, and I had lines. I had a big line coming out of me, my bicep, my chest. I had you know
Hmm.
tubes going into me or whatever, and it was a giant bag of blood that they hooked up and injected into me, and that's ultimately what saved my life. So
Yeah.
and every day after that, I just felt better and better and better. Still, losing weight, still not wanting to eat. There were days I wouldn't even drink water because it just made me feel terrible. It's hard to describe really because it sounds ridiculous. Like you don't want to drink water, like, but I couldn't. Like I take a sip of water and just I couldn't even handle it. I'd throw it up or whatever. So yeah.
So, once you started treatment, like Well, did you go through a phase or phases? I'm sure it was kind of up and down, but like,
Hmm.
where you kind of felt sorry for yourself, or did you like, was your like your mental strength, like, did you were you able to maintain that the whole time? I mean, your family was there, but like,
Yeah.
when did doubt creep in? When did you like, talk about the roller coaster there of what you went through?
Yeah, no, there was definitely a roller coaster throughout it. There were nights where I'd have a hard time sleeping, and you know I would just hate being there. I would cry at night sometimes, and as sad as that sounds, it I needed it. I needed those low moments to get the high ones. It's so much, man. The roller coaster was every day. I was down, then I was up, down, then up. Whatever was going on, and even moments higher or good moments where when I was talking to my friends or talking to my family. That's they just kept motivating me to get better, um, and yeah, just the big thing for me is keeping the end goal in the back of your mind at all times. Every day I would write, even no matter how bad I was feeling at night before I went to bed, I would write in my journal, goals, you know, things that motivate me, things I want to do when I get out of the hospital, whatever it was, whether it was, I wanted to go to Top Golf. I wrote that down every day. I wanted to, you know, do whatever, go walk around Baltimore, whatever it was.
Mhm.
I wrote it down and just kept that in mind in the high and low moments. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, stuff's up, Webb. So like, you get through it, and I'm sure, was soccer on your mind at all, or was it just kind of like,
No, it was. I was as I knew it was far. It was that was a bigger, further away goal for me, but it was always in the back of my mind. Just coming back and being better than I was before. You know, the, yeah, it. So yeah, soccer was definitely on my mind for sure. Because it's the thing I love doing. It got taken away from me, so it.
yeah?
Yeah, yeah. I just kept those goals in the back of my mind for sure.
So I mean, it sounds like those kind of kept you going. Like,
Yeah, yeah. No, I think the soccer goals primarily were the ones that kept me going for sure. It kept me motivated to keep getting through the days and keep pushing. So,
yeah,
and I would write those down too. I want to be CAA all conference. I want to be a starter next year. I want to be this. I want to be that. It just whatever it is. I used it as motivation. So
yeah. Talk about your sister, man. Like, she stepped up for you. I mean,
yeah, it's amazing. I get emotional every time I talk about it, whether it's to her or to my family. But it's what she did was amazing. Words can't words can't describe it. It's I'm thankful every day. It's it's a big sacrifice for her to do that, and I would do it for her in a heartbeat.
what were the effects on her from making that donation?
Yeah. So physically, it was she was basically what the day was. They just uh it was actually tough. They take like a big needle, stick it into like her hip bone while she's asleep, and harvest bone marrow out of her bone, and she still has two big scars in her lower back from it. But it wasn't what she went through. It was tough, definitely for a couple of days there. She got sick, felt bad, and eventually after couple weeks, a month or so, she recovered and felt better and was happy that she did it. So
Yeah, yeah, cool, man. That's tough stuff. I mean,
it is. No, it is. I get emotional
yeah,
just thinking about it. It's I'm
yeah.
having a hard time, keeping talking. But
You're doing a
it's
good job. You're doing a good
no,
job.
it's no. What she did was amazing. I don't wanna brush by it.
Yeah,
It's not every day. Something that special
yeah.
happens. where you have to make a huge sacrifice for a family member. So
Yeah. So, she's probably like, Webb owes me,
yeah, nah, every day it's I donated. I'm the bone marrow donor. Every day she's gonna hold that over me forever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
rightfully so. It's
As she should, man. As
as
she
she
should.
should, as she should. It's anything
uh,
she wants.
so, so you go through all that and you get discharged at some point, right?
Yeah.
Go home. What's the like short term prognosis? What's the outlook for the rest of your life? Like what are your concerns health wise these days? And I guess coming out of it, and then these days, and then in the future.
Yeah. So I was in the hospital for about 7 weeks total. I get discharged, and I actually, instead of going home, I had to live in like an apartment type thing in Baltimore for about a month or two because I had appointments every single day with my doctors, and I was able to leave the hospital and have my own space and have my own bed and stuff like that. But I was still very much, focused on my health and,
Mhm.
um, obviously I was when I got out, I had lost so much weight. I think the lowest going into it, I was about 170 pounds, and when I left the hospital, I was like 138 was the lowest I got to. So I
Wow.
lost a lot of weight. So, physically, there was a gym at the place I was staying at, so I was
Hmm.
going down there every day. I was trying to eat as much as I could to gain the weight back,
Right.
while also simultaneously being super focused on my health and. At the time, I also took some online classes too to try and keep up for my return to school. So I wasn't too far behind. So when I got out, it was just a huge breath of fresh air, and I can focus on my life again. And, what I want to do, and getting back to normal. So
So when you got back in the gym with your sister's marrow in you, I mean, obviously you were stronger, right? Like
of course,
your
of course,
your bench went up like 45%, right?
it did. It actually did. Yeah. Nah. It's you know it's funny, but like yeah, it makes you want it more.
Yeah.
It makes you stronger. It makes you more motivated. And yeah, I was in the gym every single day, and I still am now.
Yep.
It's yeah, you just yeah, yeah.
So are there any like long-term effects, or the treatment took care of it all, you don't have to worry about it anymore, or like is your immune system good? Like what's the story with all that?
Yeah, so I'm still at risk. My immune system's getting better every day. And, with every day, my health gets better, and I'm almost back to normal. But I am taking like medication and stuff still that suppresses my immune system, like my immune system, so my sister's bone marrow can take over and help it
Mhm.
out. So I still have to be careful. I still have to be cautious about getting sick and who I'm around. Um, just that type of stuff. Just being super, super careful with that. And my 1 year point. So basically, I have to be, super, super careful up until my 1 year point, which would be March 9th. So from the day I got my transplant last March, March 9th to this upcoming March is when I, still have to be careful, and I'm trying to live as normal as I can, um, but yeah, still have to keep it in the back of my head.
So you're back at school now, which is freaking awesome and amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm, like, how does that feel? Like, did you expect to be back? I mean, March 9th, did you expect to be where you are right now?
Honestly, no. I was so many moments of doubt, so many, I always had the goal to be back at school in the fall written down. And I wanted to believe it, and I did. But with that being said, there's obviously like doubts, and my doctors obviously like had doubts about it too. But my recovery was pretty fast compared to other people, and um, yeah, it's amazing to be back. Being back with my teammates, being back with my roommate, everything about it. it's what I kept doing. It's what I kept pushing every day for to get back to. I think yeah, it's amazing. It's hard to describe, honestly, the
Right.
feeling of being back. So
I mean, do you feel like a higher appreciation for what you have? And I mean, how's it kind of reframed the way you think about just life in general?
yeah, definitely. I think I'm grateful to be here. That's something. I wake up every day, and I thank God every day when I wake up, and I think yeah, it's yeah, it's yeah. Sorry.
No, 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 man. So
Yeah, I'm good.
you're allowed to have some emotion around this. I would think I would worry about you if you didn't. So like, how do you think it's going to equip you to like handle difficult things? You got a lifetime of difficult things coming your way. How do you think that this is going to, you know, affect the way you handle those things?
Yeah, I think going through what I went through will help for sure. It'll what I went through puts into perspective how hard things can be, and it'll equip me for what you said, those later things in life that are tough. And even now, difficult things I'm going through every day, whether it's being in practice, like having a tough practice, and you just gotta keep pushing, or whatever it is that's difficult. I think going through something difficult helps for something in the future that's hard as well.
Hmm.
And yeah, you make a good point. Um, I don't want to say it makes things easy, but going through such a hard thing, it makes every day it makes every day better. I think I have a more positive outlook now on everything, whatever I'm doing, and yeah, it helps for sure.
Yeah, I mean, how do you think that your experience? I don't want to ask this. Like, how do you think your experience? How are you going to use that to like? Do you think that it'll help you become more of a leader, more of an influence on people in your life? Not just your teammates, but other people in your life as well.
Sure. Yeah, I think it will. I think I've always been a naturally more of a quiet guy. I don't like to say a whole lot in a group setting, but I think now I have more confidence and more belief in myself to say things, to express myself, to lead a group, to speak my mind. So I think, um, yeah, it builds character for sure, going through hard things, and I think it'll help in the future, and it helps now as well. So
Yeah. What was I going to ask? Oh, so you're redshirting,
hmm
which means you're not going to play any matches this semester or this season. So how's that affecting you? Being around the team, but you know that like you still have some time before you get to like really go out and compete. How are you handling practices and what influence are you trying to have on the team right now from your position? Do you hear me?
yeah, sorry you cut out. I can hear you now.
Yeah, I just was asking, like, since you're redshirting, what um, what influence are you trying to have on the team from the sidelines, so to speak?
Yeah,
Before how are you gonna compete as a redshirt and in the position that you're in right now?
yeah. I think especially being in preseason right now, that's my primary goal is just to be the best teammate I can be. Whether it's even though I'm not directly training, I'm not directly participating in games. I think I can still be a good teammate and be a leader on the team and somebody that contributes. And we had a meeting about this the other day. Um, about even though like like having an injury or not getting a lot of minutes maybe, um just being a good teammate, whether it's if a guy's having a hard day, just going up to him saying, talking to him about it, or after every practice I like to go on and high five every guy and tell him good job. So I think My main goal right now, even though I'm not directly, playing or directly happening, what directly, you know, acting in a game, I can still be a good teammate and still be a guy that contributes in some way, right?
Yeah.
I think that that's my main goal right now, heading into the season for sure.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're like developing other skills that,
Yeah,
when you combine
definitely.
them back with your athletic ability are going to make you even more potent as a player.
Yeah, I
Um,
hope so. That's the end goal. I'm still training. I train on my own. Nearly every day. So I'm working back to get back in the spring and next fall. But no, you're right. Just building character and uh, being a better teammate than I was, being a better person than I was, will all compound into being a better player too. So
so I mean, do you feel like you are you far enough away from it now that like maybe you kind of value the experience that you went through because of the lessons it taught you and like the person that you are now coming out of it.
yeah, definitely. It's I'm a whole nother person now than I was before. I think just the lessons it taught me. Yeah, no, it's interesting how an experience can change you so much as a person. Um, and yeah, I think I'm a better person because of it. Even though it was hard, even though it was something that nobody wants to go through. Nobody wants to hear a bad diagnosis like that. But now that I'm through it, now that I'm far, 6 7 months out of it, um, it was a worthwhile experience for me, and I learned so much from it. And I think I use those things every day. I use those things I learned every single day, whether it's talking to somebody or um, just having interactions with people. And yeah, yeah, you're right. So
Cool, man. Yeah. What else? Am I missing anything?
I think we covered it. That was yeah.
Webb's like, I think that's enough, man.
No, no, it's
I mean, that was great. I mean, I really, really appreciate you sharing your story. That was, yeah, that's a tough one, and I'm so glad to hear that you've come out of it with the attitude that you have. Um,
Mhm.
that's testament to your character and all that. So,
Thank you. I
yeah, man.
appreciate it. I
Um,
appreciate it.
yeah. So yeah. Anything else to say, Webb?
Just thank you for having me on. It's good to. This is the first time I've really opened up about my story, so it was hard to remember some things and hard to think about some things again. But just thank you for having me on. I appreciate you taking the time to you know have me on. So
No, this is my privilege. So, I really appreciate it. All right, hold
yes,
on.
sir.
I hit stop. Hold on.